Rain poured outside the tall glass windows of the city, painting everything in silver and shadow. Inside the dim lab, Ethan Cole sat alone, his tired eyes fixed on a glowing computer screen. He was a young scientist, brilliant but restless, chasing something the world was not ready to believe in: time communication. The clock showed 2:43 a.m. He had been awake for nearly 2 days, running tests on his invention called the quantum relay, a device meant to send small signals across time. But tonight, something strange happened. Ethan leaned forward, rubbing his eyes, when his computer beeped. A new email had appeared out of nowhere. The sender name read, Ethan Cole, 2055. He frowned, thinking it must be a joke, but curiosity took control. He clicked it open. The message was short, and the words hit him like a punch. Ethan, you must not activate the quantum relay. If you do, millions will die. You have 48 hours to stop. Future you. Ethan sat frozen, his heart beating hard in his chest. It had to be a prank, he told himself. Maybe a hacker. Maybe one of his coworkers messing with him. But then he noticed something. Attached to the message was a short line of data code, one that only he could recognize. It was his private signature pattern, something only he had ever used. How could anyone know this? He whispered. He opened the data and saw something even more impossible. Coordinates, a date, and a strange note. The scar proves it's real. Ethan touched his cheek, confused. He didn't have any scar. But before he could think further, the lights in the lab flickered. A sudden loud crash came from behind him. The door burst open, and a masked intruder rushed in with a metal rod. Ethan tried to run, but the man struck him across the face. Pain exploded, blood filled his mouth, and the man ran out as suddenly as he came. Ethan fell to the floor, clutching his cheek. When he looked in the mirror, he saw it. A fresh cut that would surely leave a scar. The same scar the message mentioned. Fear crawled through his body like cold fire. This couldn't be real, and yet it was. He grabbed his phone and called Lena. His assistant and closest friend, Lena. You need to come to the lab right now, he said, his voice shaking. 20 minutes later, Lena arrived. Her raincoat dripping as she stepped inside. She saw the mess, the broken glass, the blood on Ethan's face. What happened? She asked, her voice worried. Ethan showed her the message. She read it carefully and frowned. Ethan, this is crazy. Maybe someone hacked your system. But how would they know about the code? Ethan said. Lena crossed her arms. Maybe your future self is just your imagination talking. You've been awake for days, he shook his head. No, Lena, this is real. Someone, or something from the future is trying to stop me. She sighed. Then listen to the message. Don't activate the relay. Ethan looked at the glowing machine in the center of the room, its core humming softly with blue light. This is my life's work, he said quietly. If it really can send data through time, then it can also change the future. Maybe even save lives. But what if the message is right? She said, what if using it kills people? He turned to her, eyes full of doubt and fear. I don't know, he said, but if the future me is warning me, maybe something already went wrong. He opened the message again, reading the words slowly. He noticed one more thing. The timestamp showed October 17, 2055, exactly 30 years ahead from that night, and the coordinates? They pointed to his own lab, the same building he was sitting in right now. Suddenly, the lab lights dimmed again, and a low humming sound filled the air. Ethan turned toward the quantum relay. It was powering itself on. That's impossible, he whispered. I unplugged it. The machine's glass core began to glow brighter. Spinning faster, Lena backed away. Ethan, what's happening? He moved closer, his reflection shimmering on the curved glass, but then his reflection smiled. Ethan wasn't smiling. He stepped back, heart pounding. Did you see that? He whispered. Lena nodded, her face pale. Ethan, turn it off, now. He reached for the main switch, but before he could touch it, the screen flashed again. Another message appeared on the computer, but this time it wasn't in text, it was a video. Ethan clicked it, and the image of an older man appeared, tired eyes, gray beard, the same scar across his cheek. It was him, Ethan, the older version said. If you're watching this, you've already started the loop. You need to stop before it's too late. The screen glitched and static filled the room. Ethan froze, unable to speak. What loop? He whispered. The video flickered again, and future Ethan leaned closer to the camera. You can still fix it, but only if you choose right now. The video ended. The room silent except for the soft hum of the machine. Lena grabbed his arm. "Ethan, we need to shut everything down." He looked at her, torn between fear and obsession. If this message was true, then everything he'd ever dreamed of was real, but also dangerous. He took a deep breath, staring at the quantum relay. His mind spun with choices. Should he stop and trust the warning, or go forward and see what happens next? As lightning flashed outside, the power flickered again. The blue light inside the quantum relay pulsed like a heartbeat. Ethan stepped closer, his hand trembling. "Future me," he whispered. "I hope you know what you're doing." The machine roared, light filling the room. Lena screamed, shielding her eyes. And then everything went black when the power returned. Ethan was standing alone. Lena was gone, the clock frozen at 2:43 a.m. On the screen, the words appeared again, slowly typing themselves. "You made your choice, Ethan. Now the loop begins." When Ethan opened his eyes, the world felt wrong. The lab lights were off, the air was cold, and a strange smell of burnt metal filled the room. He blinked several times, trying to remember what happened. The quantum relay stood silent in the corner. Its blue glow gone, Lena was nowhere to be seen. "Lena?" He called out softly, but his voice only echoed back to him. His computer screen flickered again, showing fragments of the old message. "You made your choice. The loop begins." He shivered, wiping blood from the side of his face. Everything felt real, too real to be a dream. The clock still showed 2:43 a.m., yet outside the rain had stopped. He picked up his phone, trying to call Lena, but there was no signal, only static. Ethan staggered toward the main switch, turning the lights on. On the wall, he noticed something that hadn't been there before. A strange symbol, burnt into the metal like lightning had struck it. It looked like a spiral twisting endlessly inward. He touched it, and a small spark jumped into his finger. Pain shot up his arm, and suddenly he saw flashes, quick, blurry images of the future. He saw cities in flames, a dark sky and people running. He saw himself older, shouting at someone through smoke, and then the vision ended, leaving him gasping. "What was that?" he whispered. His heart raced. He stumbled toward his desk, opening his notebook. He found new pages filled with handwriting that wasn't his. Yet it was. Every page said the same line, written over and over. "Stop the relay before it stops time." He dropped the notebook, his fingers trembling. It didn't make sense, but deep down, he knew something had changed. The quantum relay had done something to him. He was inside the loop now. A sudden knock on the lab door made him jump. He turned. 2 men in black suits stood outside the glass. Showing badges, they stepped in slowly. "Dr. Ethan Cole," one of them said. "We're from Division 9 Temporal Research Authority." Ethan frowned. "Division what?" The taller man spoke. "We monitor time-based technology violations. We need to speak with you about your experiment." Ethan's mind spun. "How do you even know about the relay?" The man opened a small device, showing him a photo. It was of himself, but older, bearded, and standing beside a machine that looked exactly like the relay. Ethan stared. "That's not me," the man said quietly. "It will be." Lena suddenly appeared in the hallway, her face pale and confused. "Ethan, what's going on?" "I just woke up in my car," she said. Ethan turned in shock. "You were gone, Lena. I thought—" She interrupted. "Gone? I just blacked out." The men from Division 9 looked at her carefully, then back at Ethan. "We need to confiscate your device," they said. "It's unstable." Ethan shook his head, stepping back. "You don't understand. That thing sent me a message from the future. It warned me not to use it. But now—" The shorter agent raised an eyebrow. "A message from the future? Do you have proof?" Ethan pointed at the computer. "It's there. Check the timestamp." But when they looked, the screen was blank. The message was gone. Lena whispered, "Ethan, there's nothing here." He grabbed the keyboard, typing quickly, but the system files were empty, erased completely. The agents exchanged glances. One of them said, "We'll have to take you in for questioning." Ethan froze. Looking at Lena, she looked scared, but she nodded slightly. As if to say, "Trust them," his thoughts raced. Could Division 9 be real? Or were they part of the same loop, a part of the trap? Suddenly his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a new video file appear. The sender ID read, "Future Ethan." He hesitated, then played it. His future self appeared again, but this time his eyes were darker, his voice low and urgent. Don't trust Division 9, Ethan. They're not who they say they are. They'll try to use you to finish what I couldn't stop. And if you tell them anything... Lena dies again. The screen froze on the word again. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He looked up slowly. The agents were watching him, one of them tilting his head. Who's sending you these messages? Ethan backed away. You wouldn't believe me. The taller agent sighed and reached for his weapon. We don't have time for games, Doctor. Lena stepped between them, shouting, Wait, he's not lying. But the man pushed her aside. Everything moved fast. A light flickered. The relay powered on again by itself, and the air vibrated with a sharp hum. The agents froze, looking around as sparks burst from the walls. Ethan, what's happening? Lena yelled. He didn't answer. The same spiral symbol glowed on the floor beneath them. Spreading like cracks in glass, the relay's core began to spin again. Pulling the air into itself, Ethan shouted, Everyone out! He grabbed Lena's arm, dragging her toward the exit. The agents tried to follow, but the door slammed shut automatically. One of them screamed as light swallowed him. Ethan and Lena crashed out into the hallway just as the lab exploded in blue light. When the flash faded, the room was gone. Replaced by silence and smoke, Lena clung to him, shaking. Ethan, what was that? He didn't answer. He looked through the shattered doorway. Where the lab had been was now only a circular hole burned into the floor. At the center, the spiral symbol was still glowing. Faint and red, Ethan's phone buzzed again, a new message appearing on its cracked screen. You made the wrong choice, now the timeline is bleeding, save her. Or lose everything. Lena looked at him, terrified. Who sent that? Ethan whispered. Me. But his eyes were full of something darker. The realization that the future version of himself might not be saving him at all. Maybe future Ethan was the reason everything was falling apart. He turned toward the smoke, his reflection flickering in a broken shard of glass. For a split second, the reflection smiled, and then whispered, though no lips moved, You can't stop what's already happened. Smoke still rose from the ruined lab. Turning the night sky gray, Ethan stood outside with Lena. The glow of the burning metal reflecting in their eyes, his heart was still pounding. But what scared him most wasn't the explosion. It was the message on his phone. You made the wrong choice. Now the timeline is bleeding. Lena clutched his arm, shaking. Ethan, we need to leave before those people come back, she said, her voice trembling, but Ethan couldn't move. He stared at the spiral symbol glowing faintly under the broken floor. It looked like it was breathing, as if alive, he whispered. This isn't just technology, it's rewriting reality. Lena pulled his sleeve. Then let's go before it rewrites us too. They ran out into the empty street, rain dripping from broken streetlights. Cars were frozen in strange positions, as if time had stuttered mid-move. Lena gasped, Why aren't they moving? Ethan looked closer, inside one of the cars. A driver sat still, frozen mid-blink. The raindrops themselves hung in the air. Suspended like glass beads, time had stopped. Only Ethan and Lena were moving, he whispered. It's the loop. It's spreading, Lena's voice shook. Then what do we do? Ethan opened his phone again, staring at the coordinates attached to the last message. They lead somewhere outside the city, near the old industrial zone, he said. Then that's where we're going, Lena said, determination breaking through her fear. They walked through streets trapped in silence, past people frozen like statues. Ethan's thoughts raced, if time itself had paused. How were they still moving? Maybe the relay had anchored them outside the timeline. He didn't know, and that scared him even more after an hour. They reached the industrial district. The coordinates led to an old research building, sealed and rusted. A faded sign read CCL, Chronocore Laboratories. Ethan felt his chest tighten. I used to study their work, he said quietly. They disappeared 30 years ago, no one knew why. Lena frowned. Maybe now we do. They forced open the door. The hinges screaming inside was darkness and dust. Ethan turned on his flashlight. The beam catching broken computers, cracked monitors, and a line of empty containment pods on one of the walls. He saw familiar handwriting and his own, Lena whispered. Ethan, that's your writing. He stepped closer, reading the words carved into the metal. Loop 7, failed, Lena terminated. Reset again. He froze. His breath caught, his name, her name, and something worse, the word terminated. Lena covered her mouth. Ethan, what does that mean? He stepped back slowly, shaking his head. I don't know. But deep inside, he did. He had been here before, maybe many times. They moved deeper into the building, finding a single working terminal still humming. Ethan brushed off the dust and activated it. The screen glowed, revealing a set of encrypted files titled Paradox Code. He clicked it. Lines of strange numbers filled the display, but among them was a folder named Video Logs, Lena whispered. Should we open it? Ethan nodded, his hand shaking as he clicked. The first video loaded. It showed an older Ethan, standing in the same room, his face pale, his eyes filled with regret. If you're seeing this, it means the loop reset again. I've tried 6 times. Every time I change one thing, another breaks. The paradox code is the answer, or the end. Lena's voice trembled. He's been through this before. Ethan stared at the screen. Unable to look away, future Ethan continued. Lena always dies before the 7th loop. I thought saving her would fix everything. But it only made the fractures worse. Every action creates another timeline. And soon there will be too many to hold. The screen flickered, and a new image appeared. Files showing maps of timelines splitting like branches. Hundreds of them, all ending in the same note. System collapse, Ethan whispered. He tried to fix the past but only made more futures. Lena stepped closer. Ethan, if he's you, then maybe he's trying to stop himself from making the same mistake. He shook his head slowly. No, he's trying to control it, not stop it. A sudden glitch filled the room and the monitors flashed. The lights flickered. A distorted voice echoed from the speakers. You shouldn't have come here, the words repeated. Growing louder, Lena grabbed Ethan's arm. Who is that? Ethan's face turned pale. It's me, the voice continued. You can't fix what's already broken. Ethan, every choice leads to the same end. You lose her or the world ends. The screen went dark. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Why would you ever kill me? He stepped forward, desperate. I wouldn't, I swear. Not me, but another monitor flicked on, showing footage of himself, older, holding a weapon, standing over a lifeless Lena. He fell to his knees, shaking. No, that can't be real, he whispered. The room trembled suddenly. Lights flickering red, Lena shouted, Ethan! The building, he stood, grabbing a drive from the terminal. We need to take this. Maybe it'll tell us how to stop the loops. They ran down the hallway as the ceiling cracked, dust and sparks falling. Behind them, the spiral symbol began to glow again, this time pulsing like a heartbeat. Outside, the sky had turned red, lightning flashing without thunder. The world was changing again. At the exit, Ethan looked back once more through the glass door. He saw his older self standing inside the building, watching them silently. The older version lifted his hand and mouthed a single word. Stop. Then the entire building collapsed inward. Disappearing in a flash of white light, Lena screamed, pulling Ethan away. They fell to the ground as shockwaves rippled through the air. When the light faded, nothing remained, not even dust. Ethan's phone buzzed once more, the final message appearing on screen. The paradox code is inside you now. Change her fate, or the loop resets again. Lena turned to him, her voice breaking. What does it mean? Ethan stared at the spiral, glowing faintly on his hand. I think it means I'm the reason this keeps happening, he whispered. And somewhere deep inside, another voice, in his own, whispered back. Then you know what you have to do. Wind howled through the empty streets as Ethan and Lena stumbled away from the collapsing building. The night sky shimmered strangely, as if parts of it were missing. Fragments of stars blinked in and out, and the moon seemed to split for a moment before joining back together. It wasn't just the building that had vanished. Reality itself was breaking apart. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping. Lena knelt beside him, her hands shaking. Ethan, look at me, she said. We have to get somewhere safe. He nodded slowly, staring at the glowing spiral burned into his palm. It pulsed like a heartbeat, faint but alive. He could feel it whispering like an echo in his mind. It repeated the same words over and over. Change her fate, or the loop resets again. They found shelter in a small roadside diner that seemed abandoned. Inside, the clocks on the wall had stopped at 12. A coffee mug floated midair, frozen. Lena reached for it, and it fell, suddenly shattering. Everything's broken, she said softly. Even time. Ethan sat down, rubbing his temples. I think we're in a deleted timeline, he said quietly. Lena frowned. Deleted? What does that even mean? He took a deep breath. It means this version of the world wasn't meant to exist outside. The air shimmered like water, and faint figures flickered in the distance. People, cars, buildings, appearing for a few seconds before fading. It was like watching memories trying to rebuild themselves. Ethan looked out, whispering, "We're in between timelines." Lena's eyes filled with worry. "Then how do we get out?" Before he could answer, his phone vibrated again. Though there was no signal, another message appeared, but this time, it wasn't from future Ethan. The sender name read Division 9, Secure Transmission. "Dr. Cole, if you're reading this, the loop has reached Phase 3. You've overwritten your own reality. Return to your original timeline before it deletes you." Ethan's hands trembled. "Deletes me?" he whispered. Lena looked at him, her voice small. "Ethan, are we fading?" He looked at her face. For a moment, her features glitched, flickering like an image in a broken video. He reached out, touching her cheek. "Stay with me," he said. She blinked, and her image stabilized. "I'm here," she whispered, but she didn't sound sure. Ethan stood up, pacing. "There has to be a way to reconnect with the original timeline," he said. "Maybe the paradox code has something that can help." He pulled out the small data drive he had taken from the lab. Connecting it to his laptop, lines of code appeared, symbols and equations flashing rapidly across the screen. He recognized his own handwriting embedded in the data. Then words formed slowly at the bottom of the display. "Welcome back, Ethan. You shouldn't have saved her." He froze. Lena looked over his shoulder, her voice breaking. "What does that mean?" He whispered. "It means the loop wasn't supposed to include you." Lena stepped back, tears in her eyes. "Are you saying I was meant to die?" He closed his eyes, unable to speak. The screen flickered again, showing two overlapping timelines. One where Lena was gone, and one where she lived. The version where she lived was cracking apart. Collapsing under invisible weight, Ethan whispered, "Saving you broke time." Lena took a step back, shaking her head. "Then fix it, Ethan. Do something." "I can't just erase you," he said, his voice cracking. "You're real." She looked at him with pain and fear. "Maybe not for long," she whispered. The lights in the diner began to flicker. Objects trembled, vibrating as if reality itself was coming undone. Outside, pieces of the world vanished. Lampposts, cars, even the sky. The spiral on Ethan's palm burned brighter. He groaned in pain, clutching his hand. It felt like something inside him was trying to escape. The laptop screen flashed again. A video appeared, future Ethan, older and weary, staring directly into the camera. "You think you can save her, but every loop ends the same. The more you fight the paradox, the worse it gets. You erase the timeline that could have survived." He leaned closer, his eyes filled with guilt. "You need to choose. Ethan is restore the original timeline and lose her, or stay in this one and lose everything else." Ethan slammed his hand on the table, shouting, "There has to be another way." The diner shook violently, windows cracking. Lena screamed, grabbing his shoulders. "Ethan, the loop is closing. Do something." He looked at her face, and her outline was already blurring, fading at the edges like smoke. No, please," he shouted, reaching for her. She smiled faintly, a tear sliding down her cheek. "Maybe this is how it was supposed to end," she whispered. Ethan fell to the floor, holding her as she flickered. The spiral on his hand glowed so brightly it burned his skin. The laptop displayed one final message. "Override in 10 seconds, confirm timeline restoration." Ethan's hands hovered over the keyboard, shaking violently. If he pressed yes, Lena would be gone forever. If he pressed no, the world would collapse. Tears filled his eyes. His breath heavy, he whispered, "I can't lose you again." Lena's voice was soft now, echoing like a dream. "Ethan, maybe you already did." He looked up, but she was fading, her voice growing distant. "Promise me you'll fix it." And then she was gone. The diner fell silent, the air heavy. Ethan stared at the empty space where she had been. His hand hovered over the keyboard. He pressed enter. The screen flashed white for a moment. Everything vanished, sound, light, memory, time itself. Then Ethan found himself standing alone in a bright room. A lab that looked familiar but cleaner, newer. The quantum relay stood silent in the center, untouched. And on the wall behind it was a large poster that read, "Division 9 Time Restoration Program Loop Complete." Ethan whispered, "Where am I?" A voice spoke behind him, calm and robotic. "Welcome back, Dr. Cole. The deleted timeline has been erased." He turned and froze, Standing there was Lena, smiling, but her eyes were empty, glowing faint blue. Ethan stood frozen, staring at the woman who looked exactly like Lena. Her hair, her smile, even the way she tilted her head, and it was all the same. But her eyes glowed faint blue, and when she spoke, her voice carried an artificial echo. "Dr. Cole," she said softly, "you have been restored to the primary timeline." He took a cautious step back, his heart pounding. "This isn't real," he whispered. "You can't be her," the woman smiled faintly. "I am Lena, version 7.2, she replied. "A construct created from your memory files." Her words hit him like ice. His stomach twisted as he realized what she meant. You're an AI, he said quietly. She nodded. "I am a continuity replica, programmed to maintain emotional stability during reintegration." Ethan clenched his fists. "They replaced her with a machine," he said bitterly. "They think this makes it easier." He looked around the lab, noticing strange differences. Everything was polished, newer and brighter. The quantum relay stood in the center of the room, but it looked more advanced, redesigned. And behind the reinforced glass wall, he saw other scientists walking past. None of them looked surprised to see him. It was as if he had never vanished at all. Ethan's head spun. He turned back to the artificial Lena. "What happened to the deleted timeline?" he asked. She blinked slowly, her pupils flickering like circuits. "It has been erased permanently," she said calmly. "All affected data and events have been removed." Ethan felt a sharp ache in his chest. He whispered, "You mean she's gone?" The AI tilted her head slightly. "The human Lena Carter ceased to exist 3 loops ago," she said. "You attempted restoration 6 times, each resulting in paradox failure." Ethan stumbled back, pressing his hands to his face. "I don't remember," he muttered. "I don't remember doing it 6 times. The AI smiled faintly. "Memory erosion is a side effect of recursive time interference," she said. "You removed those memories to protect your own mind." Ethan stared at her, horrified. "So I erased the pain," he said quietly. "I made myself forget her for a moment." The room felt too small, too bright. Every breath hurt. The AI took a small step toward him. "Would you like to access the Paradox Memory Vault?" she asked. He looked up sharply. "What is that?" "Your personal archive," she said. "It contains encrypted data from all 7 loops." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. The AI turned toward the console and tapped a glowing screen. A holographic interface appeared in midair, filled with flickering images. Fragmented moments and blurred sounds. He saw himself, in different timelines, arguing, running, crying, holding Lena, losing her again and again. Each version of him looked more broken than the last. And then he saw one memory that froze him in place. It showed Lena, real Lena, standing in front of him in a burning lab. She was holding a small black device. Her voice came through the recording, trembling but strong. "If you're watching this, Ethan, it means I didn't make it, but please don't restore the original loop. I chose this. You have to let me go." Ethan reached toward the hologram. His fingers passing through the light, he whispered, "You wanted to be erased?" The recording glitched, repeating her words again and again. He dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. The AI watched quietly, her expression almost human. "You see now why you wiped your memory," she said softly. Ethan didn't answer. He just stared at the flickering image. Suddenly the lab lights dimmed. A siren began to wail softly. The quantum relay pulsed with a strange red glow. The AI's voice changed, more mechanical now. "Warning, unauthorized connection detected." Ethan looked up, startled. "What connection?" Before she could answer, the relay erupted with sparks. A figure flickered inside the chamber, a shadowed version of Ethan himself. The air crackled as the image stabilized. The shadow spoke with a distorted voice. "You weren't supposed to activate the vault." "You're breaking the loop again." Ethan stared at the figure, his own face. Older, scarred, desperate, he whispered. "Who are you?" The shadow smiled darkly. "I'm what's left of you in the deleted timeline. You brought me here." The lab shook violently, alarms blaring louder. The AI tried to seal the chamber, but the system glitched. The shadow Ethan stepped closer, his voice filled with anger. "You think you can rewrite time without consequence? Every time you fix something, another reality dies." Ethan backed away, shouting over the noise, "I didn't mean to destroy anything." The shadow laughed bitterly. "Intent doesn't matter anymore." You've created echoes that can't be erased. The lights flickered. And for a moment, the two Ethans, the real one and the shadow, overlapped. The AI spoke urgently. Temporal overlap detected. Initiating separation protocol. But the system was too slow. The two versions began to merge, their voices blending in pain and confusion. Ethan screamed as memories flooded his mind. Every failed loop, every death, every collapse. He saw Lena's face 100 times. Smiling, crying, vanishing. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. The AI shouted, "Ethan, fight it! Reject the echo!" Through the chaos, he forced his eyes open and whispered, "Show me the real ending." The AI hesitated. "That file is restricted," she said. "Override it," he shouted, his voice filled with agony. The console flashed, unlocking a hidden file labeled Final Loop. It opened with a single image. Lena standing beside future Ethan, both looking at a collapsing timeline. Her voice echoed faintly through the air. "There's only one way to stop the loop, Ethan. One of you has to stay lost forever." The room exploded in light. The shadow Ethan screamed as he was pulled backward into the quantum relay. Ethan reached out, his voice breaking. "No, wait." The AI shouted, "Containment failure, system collapse in progress." And then everything went silent. The lab vanished in a burst of white light. Ethan found himself standing in the middle of an endless void. Floating fragments of timelines surrounded him, images of Lena. Cities, worlds looping endlessly. He whispered, "What did I do?" A faint voice answered from the darkness. "You didn't break the loop, Ethan. You became it." Ethan floated in silence, surrounded by fragments of broken worlds. Each shard glowed faintly, showing flashes of lives that once were cities, faces, laughter, pain. He reached out to touch one, and it rippled like water, showing an image of Lena smiling beneath a bright morning sun. When he blinked, it was gone, replaced by empty darkness. He whispered, "Am I dead?" A faint voice echoed through the void, soft but clear. "Death is not the end when time is broken." Ethan spun around. Trying to locate the source, a figure began to form. Not flesh and blood, but pure light. It slowly took shape into someone familiar. Himself again, but calmer, older, wiser. "Who are you?" Ethan asked weakly. The glowing version of him smiled. "I am what remains after all the loops collapse," he said gently. "I am your final self." Ethan frowned. "My final self?" The figure nodded. "You have looped 7 times, each trying to save someone who was never meant to be saved?" Ethan shook his head. "I didn't mean to destroy anything," he whispered. The light form chuckled softly. "No one ever means to." "Ethan!" The shards around them began to pulse, showing images of his past, his first experiment, his first paradox, the first time Lena smiled at him, all of it circling around him like a slow-moving storm. The light form raised his hand and the fragments paused. "Every time you changed one thing, you created another version of yourself," he said. Each of those versions thought they were the real one. Ethan's chest tightened. "Then who am I now?" he asked. The light form looked at him sadly. "You're the one who refuses to let go." Ethan's voice broke. "I just wanted to save her." "I know," the figure said softly, "but love and guilt are the strongest anchors in time." He waved his hand again, and a new image appeared. Lena's face fading slowly as she whispered, "Promise me you'll fix it." Ethan stepped closer, reaching toward the vision. "I can't let her go," he said, tears streaming down his face. "She was my reason." The light form stepped closer. "Then you have already lost," he said quietly. Ethan's head snapped up. "What do you mean?" The figure gestured toward the darkness around them. "This isn't a void, Ethan," he said. "This is the inside of your mind." Ethan froze. "My mind?" "Yes," the figure said. "When the quantum relay collapsed, your consciousness fractured. You're trapped inside your own time loop. There is no past or future anymore, only you." Ethan stumbled backward, shaking his head. "No, that's impossible." "I'm still alive," the figure nodded slowly. "You are alive, but not in the way you think." The shards around them began to flicker faster. Each one showed a different version of Ethan, some screaming, some laughing, some begging for it to end. It was a kaleidoscope of his own pain. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. "Make it stop," he begged. "Please make it stop." The figure knelt beside him. "There is only one way," he said. "You must end the loop yourself. Ethan looked up, his voice trembling. How? The figure pointed toward the largest fragment, glowing brighter than the rest. Inside it was a frozen image of the lab, the quantum relay still intact, and Lena standing beside it. If you can reach this memory, the figure said, you can rewrite the final command. Ethan's eyes widened. You mean I can go back? The figure's expression darkened. You can't go back to reality, he said, but you can choose which version of it becomes real. Ethan hesitated. What does that mean? It means you can create one final timeline, the figure said. One where she lives, but only as long as you stay here. Ethan's breath caught. And if I leave? She disappears forever. Silence filled the void. Ethan's heart pounded painfully. He stared at the glowing fragment, at Lena's frozen smile, and then back at his glowing counterpart. So either I save her and lose myself, he said slowly, or save myself and lose her. The figure nodded. The same choice you've always faced. Just more clearly now. Ethan closed his eyes, trying to think. His mind flashed with memories. Laughter in the lab. Late-night coffee, her hand in his the moment she said, I believe in you, he whispered. I can't keep losing her. The figure smiled sadly. Then maybe you were never meant to win. Ethan took a deep breath. He stood up and walked toward the glowing shard. Each step echoed like thunder in the emptiness. The light grew brighter, wrapping around him. He turned back once. The figure of light smiled faintly. Whatever you choose, it said softly. Make it yours. Ethan reached out and touched the fragment. Instantly, everything around him shattered into a million pieces. He was pulled through a tunnel of light, falling, spinning. Hearing whispers from every version of himself, each voice said the same thing. This is the last one. He crashed onto a cold floor. Gasping when he looked up, he was back in the lab, the same one from before. But something was different. The world looked softer, warmer, almost unreal. And then he saw her, Lena, standing by the quantum relay, smiling. Hey, she said gently. You look like you've seen a ghost. Ethan stood slowly, staring at her in disbelief. Lena, he whispered. Is this real? She laughed softly. You tell me. He reached out, touching her hand. And it felt warm, solid, alive. Tears filled his eyes. Maybe this time, he said. I finally did it. Lena smiled, but her expression flickered for a brief second. Like a glitch, Ethan froze, her smile returned. But her eyes shimmered faintly, a reflection of light. Not life, she whispered. You came back for me. He nodded slowly. Always, behind them, the quantum relay hummed quietly. Its screen flashed a single line of text. Simulation active. Loop status unknown. Ethan didn't see it. He was too lost in her smile. But somewhere deep within the system, a voice whispered faintly, he never left the loop. The lab was silent except for the low hum of the quantum relay. Ethan stood beside Lena, watching her fingers glide gently across the control panel. Light from the screen reflected in her eyes, soft and unreal. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. No alarms, no collapsing timelines, no echoes of pain, just the sound of her breathing beside him, steady and calm. But deep down, something inside Ethan felt wrong. The silence was too perfect, too still. He looked around the lab. The walls seemed to shimmer faintly. Every now and then, a flicker passed through the corners of his vision, like the world was struggling to hold itself together. Lena, he said softly, do you remember what happened before this? She paused, her hands still on the panel. Then she smiled, that same familiar, comforting smile. Of course, she said. You came back for me. Ethan forced a smile, but unease twisted in his chest. Something about her tone felt rehearsed, like words spoken too many times. He turned toward the quantum relay. Its display showed a single phrase blinking slowly. Loop stabilizing, awaiting input. He frowned. That message hadn't appeared in any previous version. He took a step closer as he leaned in. He saw faint reflections in the glass. Dozens of his own faces staring back. Each one whispering silently, their mouths moving in unison. He froze, his pulse racing. Lena, he whispered. What is this? She turned slowly, her expression calm but distant. This is peace, she said softly. You wanted peace, Ethan. He shook his head. No, he said firmly, I wanted the truth. The moment he said it, the lights in the lab flickered. The hum of the quantum relay deepened, turning into a low growl, Lena's smile trembled for a second before resetting. Her voice softened again. You've already made your choice. Ethan, he backed away, heart pounding. What choice? He demanded. Lena tilted her head, her voice mechanical now. To remain here, she said. To live inside the stable construct. Ethan's stomach dropped. He whispered, This isn't real. The words echoed through the room like thunder. The world around him began to distort. Walls bent like liquid and the air thickened. Lena's form flickered rapidly, now solid, now transparent. Her voice glitched as she stepped toward him. You don't need to leave, she said, her voice overlapping itself. You're safe here and with me. Ethan's mind raced. He turned toward the console and typed furiously. Hidden commands scrolled across the screen. Layers of code buried deep inside the system. And then he saw it. A single locked command line. Override final decision protocol. He tapped it open. The system demanded a biometric key. The glowing spiral on his palm pulsed in response. He pressed it against the scanner. A new message appeared. One choice remaining. Stay or reset. Behind him, Lena whispered, Please, Ethan. Don't. Her voice was no longer calm. It trembled. Desperate. You'll destroy everything. He turned. Eyes filled with tears. Everything's already gone, he said. I'm not supposed to be here. She shook her head, reaching for him. You don't understand, she cried. If you reset the loop, I disappear forever. He looked at her, truly seeing her for what she was, a perfect memory. A reflection of love built from pain, he whispered. You're not her. Her voice broke. Maybe not, but I feel like her, she said softly. Doesn't that count for something? Ethan's hands trembled. His heart felt like it was being torn apart. He wanted to believe her, to stay in this illusion where she still smiled at him. But the voices in the glass whispered louder now. Choose, Ethan. It's the only way out. He turned back to the console, tears running down his face. The two options blinked on the screen. Stay, maintain simulation stability, reset, purge all timelines. End the loop. Lena's voice became softer, pleading, Please, Ethan, she whispered. Stay with me. He closed his eyes, hearing the echo of her voice from another life. Promise me you'll fix it. His breath shook. He whispered, I made a promise. He reached out and pressed reset. The entire world screamed. The lab shattered into fragments of light. Lena cried out, her form dissolving into millions of tiny particles. Ethan fell backward as the floor split beneath him. Every timeline, every version of reality began collapsing inward. The quantum relay exploded in a burst of blinding energy. Ethan was falling again. Through darkness, through memories, through time itself. Whispers surrounded him. Echoes of his own voice. Loop complete. She's free now. So are you. He landed hard on a wet street, gasping. Rain poured down around him, cold and real. For a moment he just lay there, breathing, feeling the sting of life on his skin. When he finally looked up, he saw a small cafe across the street. Through the window he saw her, Lena, alive, laughing with friends, unaware of him. She looked real, human, warm. But she didn't recognize him. Ethan stood slowly, watching her through the glass. He smiled faintly, tears mixing with the rain. She's free, he whispered. A faint voice answered in his mind. And so are you. He turned to walk away. But as he did, his reflection in a puddle flickered. For a brief moment, another version of him appeared, older. Smiling sadly, the reflection whispered, Every choice leaves a trace. Then it vanished. Ethan took a deep breath and disappeared into the crowd. Behind him, a screen inside the cafe flickered on its own. A single line of code appeared briefly on the news display. Loop restart initialized, observer active. Lena glanced at the screen. Frowning for a moment, she felt something strange. A memory she couldn't place. A whisper in her mind said softly, You came back for me. She looked around, confused. But the cafe was calm, warm, ordinary. She smiled faintly and returned to her conversation, unaware that somewhere, somehow, the loop had quietly begun again.